Hello there, everyone, and thank you very much for tuning into episode 471 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, live on YouTube. As always, you're very, very welcome, whether you're watching the live or you're watching the recording. First comment for this one goes to Ty, who says, wow, love it of Old Spice. And then Mika Shoemaker says, throwbacks. And Joanna says, hello again. This sounds like fun. I'm hoping it will be fun. We're doing a little bit of a proper Love at First Scent thing here because I haven't smelt these particular bottles. I mean, I have smelt these scents in the past, but not for a very long time. I should very quickly say, if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do consider doing so. Click on the little bell so that you get notifications of new videos. And if you would like to find out how you can support my work, you should be able to see a link to my Ko-fi page in the video description below. Jeff says, the OCD inside me is bugged that you classified the opium video into the classic label and not the vintage label, but I'll overlook it. Jeff, you know, to be completely honest with you, I forgot that I had a vintage label. I will look into it. I can change the thumbnail. Changing the thumbnail is not a problem, but yes, I should look into that. Good point. Good point. I forgot I had a vintage label. Comparisons, yes, says A. Oh, how fun, says Spencer. Was not expecting this. I sprayed vintage Brut on my hands this morning, says Dushan. Oh, amazing. Okay. Why are we doing this? For the previous video where I was looking at vintage opium, why I sell opium, I was inspired by the Michael Edwards book, Perfume Legends 2. This video has clearly been inspired by his latest book, American Legends, where he talks about the sort of the highlights, the high points of American perfumery. Both Brut and Old Spice are in there. And it occurred to me that they are both available. I've seen them at supermarkets. I had seen them at supermarket lots and lots of times, and I thought, you know, what on earth do they smell like now? Why do I just keep walking past them? I, of course, remembered them from, you know, back in the day. I think there was hardly a single household that didn't have a bottle of either Old Spice or Brut. I think in my youth, probably most of the time it was Brut. Maybe it was a kind of Middle Eastern, Southern Iranian thing. I don't know. But they're around, and so I thought, well, I mean, I got this new. These are the new ones. Okay, you can tell. So this is Current Brut, the company that the license is now owned by Unilever, and Current Old Spice, which is a Procter and Gamble product. They were picked up just a few days ago at my local Sainsbury's. Interestingly, they weren't at the Tesco's. I don't know if that means anything. I don't know whether in different parts of the country the Tesco's would have them, but they were very, very readily available at Sainsbury's. And also in the run-up to that, I did a little bit of the old internet scouring, and I managed to find this vintage Brut for, I mean, just silly money. I mean, ridiculously silly money. And the Old Spice, actually, there were two Old Spices that came at the same time. There's a cologne bottle, this one, which is pretty much empty. And then this aftershave lotion one, which is not empty at all. And I have not smelt them. For all I know, they will smell horrible. But I think maybe what we should do is maybe we should do current first, current of each one first, and then vintage. What do you think? That Brut vintage bottle, oh dear, says Air Bureau. I know. I mean, to think that this was considered to be a good bottle design, I am so tempted to kind of like take the medallion off and do the whole thing. But amazing. I mean, you know, just absolutely classic product. As I say, they're both in the book. Old Spice is from 1938. The perfume credited to Bert Hawke, I think, or Hauck, who was part of Dodge and Olcott, which has now been incorporated into Givaudan. I mean, this is the amazing type of detail that you get in this book. It goes into the creation of it, the production of it, and also the context, you know, the fact that trying to make alcoholic things almost like a kind of antiseptic post-shaving thing was something that had been done in the 19th century, but then they decided that it might be a good idea to actually make these things smell good. Anyway, we should do the current. Tripsy says, I've been teaching in Trinidad for 2 weeks and have missed your last couple of lives. Thus the dream. I'm touched. I'm caught up now. So glad to be back on schedule with your lives. American vintage equals nostalgia. Right, let's do vintage. No, current. We should do the current. So I'm going to do current. Old Spice. I mean, I'm not expecting a huge deal because I think this cost like £7 or something. I love the fact that they've still kept. I mean, of course, this had a bit of a revival a few years ago, didn't it? Didn't we have that campaign? What was it? Smell like a man, or whatever it was. I love the fact that they've kept the similar sort of cap. Okay, let's. Oh, here we go. This is could be. What if there's been this gem under my nose for years, every single time I've gone into Sainsbury's? Arafat. Oh, hello, Arafat. I was thinking, who's that? Oh, can you forgive me? Arafat says, I'm pretty sure I used that Old Spice aftershave back in the day. No, I don't think we would have. Would he? Would we? For those of you wondering, this is a very, very old friend. I don't think we would have, but I seem to remember you were partial to Azaro. Remember the original Azaro? Oh, what was it? Thomas says, if your grandfather hadn't worn it, you wouldn't exist. Was that the title? Okay, what is the best way of doing this? Like, can I? Oh yeah, okay, here we go. Let's just make this a little bit small. Thank you very much for tuning in, Naravad. Oh, is this going to work? Any on there? Yes, we've got some on there. Oh gosh, hang on. Throwback time. It's only just firing up something. Gavin says the dainty dipping of a blotter is so not either scent. No, you're right. You're right. But I can't go contaminating my body at the moment. I need to smell the. Okay. It's so pale. I mean, I remember it being spicy. I mean, Old Spice. It was properly spicy. But this just feels like a very, very kind of gentle, slightly cinnamic barbershop type composition. I mean, just really very, very pleasant. And you know what? For something that costs less than £10, it's not coming across as harsh. When I think of some of the other scents that cost 10 times, if not more than that, they're really, really abrasive, unpleasant. But this is quite charming, quite likable, but just very, very, very pale, very quiet. Interesting. Oris Hero says, my dad said they got Old Spice for Christmas as kids, and it was a very big deal present for them at the time because it was all they could afford. Okay, let's do the vintage. What condition is this going to be in? Please be good. Please be good. Arafat's now so offended that he's actually switched off and tuned out and is never going to speak to me again. Hopefully not. Okay, there we go. This has got the ship. This has got the ship. It's got to have the ship. Drag says, I think Old Spice is beautiful still. It gets clovey, rosy, and powdery. You think? I remember it as being spicier. Okay, let's see. Oh, this has got an even smaller opening. The challenge of doing these videos, right? No, it's coming, folks. It's coming. There is a lot in here. At the end of the video, I promise I will put some on skin. And then we'll see what Madame Persolaise says. Yeah, okay. You can see that they're kind of the same scent, but one... Oh, yeah, Arafat says, I remember it being talcum powdery. Yeah, kind of. Okay, it's pretty intact, actually, the current version, but just maybe a bit thinner, whereas the old one is more faceted. There's more to it. I think that spice note comes out a little bit more, contrast with sweetness, and very, very much more markedly ambery. Actually, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the Estee Lauder thing of just a little bit. Apparently this is what she did. Okay, just a few drops there. Oh, that's nice. It is nice. It's It is more faceted. It's more interesting. Kind of cinnamon, clove, vanilla, balsams. It's a really, really great piece of work. A really, really nice piece of work. I think the rule for vintage Old Spice, says Thomas, is getting the Shulton bottles. Yes, and look, where does it say? There you go. I knew that one of them said. That one says Shulton there, which was, of course, the original brand. And then this one, I think, actually says Shulton. There you go. That one says Shulton on the back as well. So yeah, that is what you're meant to look for. Okay. It's just I mean, I think a few mainstream brands could learn a thing or two from this, because it's less than £10 and it's like a million times better than a lot of other stuff. So just to read you a little bit about the composition, because I thought this was interesting. So among the oil houses that Schultz, as in the man who gave his name to Shulton, approached was Dodge and Olcott, America's oldest flavor and fragrance supplier. Their perfumer Bert Hawke proposed a scent that he had created some time before. Although the fragrance had been offered to several other clients, it was still on the shelf, and Schultz liked what he smelt and so on. And then Hawke developed Old Spice, which was a masculine variation of the early American Old Spice scent that the company had done. It was much more citrusy, but still a spice oriental, said Schultz. Old Spice pioneered the use of fragrances by men, apart from, are you ready for this? Apart from Menon's Skin Bracer, who remembers that one from 1931, a sort of nothing brand then, there was only Aquavelva and generic Bay Rum from the barbershop. But I like this line from Jean-Claude Ellena. Scents are complex olfactory messages which need their cultural context to be understood, says perfumer Jean-Claude Ellena. Quote, throughout Europe, the scent of lemon is frequently associated with freshness. For Americans, though, this word is more likely to belong to Jean Nattet eau de cologne, which for Europeans, on the other hand, bears a strong resemblance to Shalimar from Guerlain. Why? For Americans, this perfume's sweet vanilla-like ambery notes are synonymous with freshness. Since everybody's skin smells like what he or she eats, this smell naturally combines with the fragrance that he or she is wearing. Americans who consume 3/4 of the world's vanilla output have a pronounced preference for sweet vanilla fragrances. Consequently, the composition of Old Spice is like the composition of Coca-Cola. Both are based upon lemon, orange, cinnamon, and vanilla. Get the book for more insights like this. I'm telling you, it's fascinating. Oh, and Thomas says, Menon, oh my, I know. I'm sure I had a bottle of Skin Bracer. I'm sure I must have had a bottle of Skin Bracer. I need to be careful here because I think things are going to start collapsing. Thomas says, I always thought Aquavelva smelled of mouthwash. Turned out that was actually how the company started. Joanna says, off to buy the book as soon as we finish here. Noir Épice reminds me of Old Spice, says Pro. Yeah, well, yes, very, very definite link. Jeff says, I remember reading this in the Fragrantica interview Michael Edwards did recently. There you go. It is really, really lovely, though. Just so gently, but convincingly spicy. Okay, are we ready for Brut? Are we ready for Brut? Now, Brut, of course, was the scent in the 60s, 1964, that famously revived the fougère. The fougère, of course, was well, we're not sure about it now, but we still keep saying that it was probably the first perfume to feature a synthetically produced material. It had synthetic coumarin, and the accord that it was for Houbigant. It was a scent called Fougère Royale, and that the particular accord that was there then created or led to the formation of a whole genre of scents, and they became very, very, very definitely, distinctly masculine compositions, but also ones that I think, let's be blunt, over the years have been really, really terrible. I've had the huge privilege and honor and pleasure of smelling the Osmotec version of the original Fougère Royale. And when you smell that, you get why Fougère became so successful and so popular. And you also see how beautifully they contrasted certain elements that I then I think came to be associated with masculinity. And so they're sort of authoritative and virile and hairy-chested, but also really tender and gentle. And I think those were the elements that were lost over the decades. There are still some great fougères around, as you all know. Géranium pour Monsieur from Frédéric Malle is a good one. Jicky from Guerlain is a fougère and is still in pretty good shape. But a lot of the time, anything that is now marketed as a fougère, you can kind of be fairly certain that it's going to be quite boorish and overly authoritative and kind of manspready, which is so not what that genre was to start with. So I am thinking, I don't know, I'm thinking that current Brut is probably going to come across as a touch harsh. But I'm also thinking that if this bottle is in good condition, it will actually maybe explain why Brut was as successful as it was, because I know that it's kind of the scent that we all love to be snarky about, but it was ridiculously successful. Okay, so we're going in. This is my current Unilever Brut, purchased just the other day from the local Sainsbury's. Dushan says Sultan Pasha has the original bottle of Fougère Royale in his collection. I have an old one too, thanks to one of you actually. And the juice is in okay condition, but I thought I'm not going to kind of mix things up here. I should do a video on that one. Gavin says Youth Dew is another Coke scent to my mind. Are they contemporaries? Ah, there you go. No, Youth Dew is 50s, isn't it? Okay, so current Brut aftershave. Okay, interesting. Again, gentler than I thought it would be. Much gentler than I thought it would be. I think Brut today is so subtle, says Thomas. Yeah. I mean, okay, that kind of roughness is slightly coming through. But when I think of gosh, when I think of Versace Eros, when I think of Creed, Viking, when I think of Bleu de Chanel, when I think of Dior Sauvage, this is more attractive. This is more suave. I think this was £9. Brut is an anagram of Bert, says Gavin. Correct. And interesting. You can it smells. It somehow, even though it's a 60 cent, it somehow smells of the 70s. Let's do the vintage. We need to do the vintage. We need to do the vintage. So please be good. Please, please, please be good. I mean, I'm guessing this is more concentrated than what they're selling at the moment. The book, by the way, also goes into how and why the brand that made this was called Fabergé. Okay, are we ready for this? Oh gosh, that takes me back. Wow. Okay. This is good stuff. It's really, really good stuff, isn't it? I mean, I know it's kind of fashionable to be. It's probably more the advertising campaigns that, wasn't there one poster with like the guy who's sort of taken this medallion thing and put it over his eye like an eye patch, like he seems sort of pirate, and is he kind of smoking a cigar? I mean, all of those adverts became quite painful, didn't they? Does anyone remember denim aftershave, says Thomas? Oh my goodness, on all of the different colors. I mean, you used to just get them in all the souks in Dubai back in the day. Okay, this is a proper fougère, because what I'm smelling here is a very convincing lavender note, a very convincing oak mossy note, a very, very convincing dose of the kind of hay-like, sunshiny personality of coumarin. It's actually really, really nice. And I get why they called it Brut, or I suppose we should say Brut, because it's meant to be that kind of dry as opposed to douce, right? But it's got that tenderness to it. And one connection that I'd never made. I wonder if anybody out there who has vintage Brut, and a good dollop of nitro musk, says Air Bureau. Yeah, probably. This is what Jacques Cavalier must have been channeling, and what he must have had on his mind when he was making Yves Saint Laurent Rive Gauche pour Homme. It's that kind of dark, musky masculinity with a good dose of spices. It really is. It really, really is like Rive Gauche pour Homme. Okay, let's just tell you a little bit about the composition, because again, this is from the Michael Edwards American Legends book, which is very heavy and noisy, as you can tell. Now, Brut is credited to Jean Carl of Rouen, and then it says that it was adapted by Ernest Shifton of IFF. If you want to know who this amazing Ernest Shifton guy is, you need to watch the interview that I did with Michael Edwards. He's this kind of unsung hero of perfumery. Michael Edwards calls him the father of American perfumery. So it goes into a little bit into Fougère Royale. It says, Fougère Royale caught the attention of perfumers both for its structure and composition. Aimé Garlin, then at the height of his career, responded in 1889 with his groundbreaking Jiki, in which he elaborated on the accord pioneered by Fougère Royale. Fougère Royale and Jiki in turn inspired the sweet, zesty notes of Canoë, which both Jade East and Brut copied. Perfumer Guy Robert says Brut was a better Canoë. Etc., etc. Fabergé's in-house perfumer made Brut in 5 minutes after Shifton had given him the Canoë formula. Canoë was created in 1938 by Jean Carl, Roux Bertrand Dupont's legendary chief perfumer. It was an inexpensive Spanish fougère, sweet with musk and heliotrope, fresh with citrus and lavender. Guy Robert says, I gave the Canoë formula to Ernest because a customer had asked him for it. Why do you want to show a formula that is not ours? I asked, because maybe we'll do business with it, was Ernest's answer. I gave him the formula, and 3 months later, Brut appeared. And then it goes on to talk about its success. And then it goes on to explain what it led to. Paco Rabanne pour Homme in 1973, Azaro pour Homme from 1978, Dracar Noir, Cool Water from 1988, Tommy from 93, and the aforementioned Bleu de Chanel and Sauvage. And I think now we need to do the thing. By the way, I saw one comment from Sam who says, would love you to respond to the recent BBC expose on child labour in the industry. I am going to try to come up with a response to it, but I think not here, because this video is still probably going to be around in a few years' time and people will be wondering what we're talking about. But I want to watch the BBC documentary first of all. But yes, it's certainly an issue, isn't it? And one that needs to be exposed and needs to be discussed. But not today, right? I think we need to do this, right? We need to go for it. So let's do some here. Notice where I'm going for. Oh wow! Suddenly, I feel like I've aged. It's really good. It's really, really good. A proper fougère. I mean, instantly becomes like one of the best fougères in my collection. Oh, I'm so glad I got this. I'll tell you now, it cost £14. Okay, plus I think 2 or 3 for postage and packing for 90 mils, and it's in fantastic condition. Thomas says, I got into fragrances thanks to these cheap aftershaves, which is a good note on which to end, because these are the entry levels for a lot of people, right? Let's just do a quick smell of the other ones. So current Old Spice, just a bit too thin and soapy, but very, very, very attractive. Original Old Spice, yeah, much more interesting, much spicier, like I said, more faceted, more vanillic, like almost, I mean, you can see the connection with Shalimar, almost like a very, very, very light Shalimar cologne. And current Brut. I mean, current Brut's not doing it. You can kind of see the ghost of the idea there, but it's pretty thin. Whereas vintage Brut, truly great, really, really wonderful. Okay, thank you very much for going down this memory lane trip with me. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned to social media for details of other videos coming your way. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you soon. Be good now. Be Brut.